now, Ed, you have a guest that you're going to bring on the show, Dr. Ernest Bonner, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, please, Dr. Bonner, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Ed, please take it away. This is your guest.
Well, Dr. Bonner, you and I have talked a number of different times about a variety of different projects you have. The one thing that seems to be most intriguing to us all is, other than just the weight loss thing, but a couple other things that really intrigues us is the idea of attacking what you call the 750,000, was it million or thousand?
750 million people globally
750 million people potentially affected by a drug that you could create. Before you do that, though, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to this point.
Come into the microphone just a little bit. We want to hear you better. Go ahead.
I attended undergraduate and medical school at Duke.
You've heard of Duke. You heard of Duke?
Yes, I know Duke.
Yeah. It's
Go
a good
ahead.
place.
It is.
A great place, in fact.
Go on.
But anyway, and now I am the Director of Research for Global Pharma Labs, Inc., which is a Reg A plus Tier 2 company.
Okay. Now, when you think about Global Pharma Labs, the one thing that you brought up to us was the fact that you felt like that you guys were going to make a game-changing product called what?
Oasis.
Okay. Tell us about Oasis.
Oasis is a combination of anti-infective drugs that we use to treat individuals with osteoarthritis.
Okay.
Osteoarthritis is a disease that affects around 750 million people globally.
Now, what does that mean? You said anti-infective. What is it for those of us who didn't go to medical school at Duke? Tell us what that means.
Antiviral, antibiotics, antifungal drugs.
Okay. What is it? What is the impact it has once it's ingested? What does it do to the person who has osteoarthritis? What is it? How does it change the molecular structure, whatever's happening to them?
It is disease modifying, and
Okay.
in fact, it affects total remission or cure in a large number of individuals.
So what you're telling us is from something as lethal as osteoarthritis, because we see obviously a lot of people have it. You believe that once your drug is approved, it could potentially have the ability to cure this.
That's correct.
Okay. When you make a pretty bold claim, obviously it has to be backed up by a number of different things. And where are you in the process when it comes to bringing this drug to the market?
We have completed pilot studies, and those pilot studies have demonstrated a 90.1% reduction in pain, a 94.5% reduction in stiffness, and around an 84.5% improvement in function.
Wow, that says a lot. That means we can all live as long as my grandfather just died at 95, with a little bit more mobility. That is, when you think about osteoarthritis and the way you're taking your role in actually solving this problem, where do you see the biggest impact on a global basis? Obviously, when you say osteo, you're thinking of people who are a little bit older, but for people who aren't necessarily at a point where they feel geriatric, is this a product that works for everybody?
It works for those that are not allergic to any of the components.
Okay, so the product you have right now is a combination of existing components?
That's correct. It's a combination of existing FDA-approved drugs.
And that also would require you with that. Well, I'll kind of go back on you a little bit here. Back when we were doing similar type transactions with other public companies, we saw people create new compounds that ultimately had to be approved by the FDA. When you look at this compound, is even though it's a compound or a combination of existing compounds, you also have to have it approved?
That's correct.
Okay. When you go through that process, how do you see, I guess, the inside of it? Because, I mean, tell us about the process of getting it approved. Tell us about how you plan to get it there.
We plan to conduct clinical trials
Okay.
on the product as soon as we raise the funds. The clinical investigational protocol has already been developed. Our company is poised to go as soon as we raise the funds, and we have an SEC qualified offering on the table presently.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're at the point where you're starting to begin the process of exploring whether the true efficacy exists here. Has the protocol that you've created already been approved by the FDA for the purpose of this study?
No, the protocol has not been approved by the FDA.
Okay.
That's the purpose of the clinical trials.
Okay. So the clinical trials, I mean, obviously we want to get deep in the weeds as far as the clinical trials are concerned with a new drug, but give us kind of a feel for those of us, I mean, kind of a step-by-step process, in the minute or so we have here. Give us kind of a high-level view of what that looks like.
We got about 30 seconds, so we can continue on the other side.
Yeah, we'll go on the other side. We'll hold that for the other side of the break, and we'll talk about more about Global Pharma, where you're going with it, how we get there, and what you need to get there. We'll be right back on the other side of this break with more from Dr. Bonner from Global Pharma Research. This section brought to you by Lots of Yachts.
Welcome back to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba, your host, and we're listening to Ed Baxter talk with Dr. Ernest Bonner. Ed, this is your guest. Please let me step back and take it from here.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Dr. Bonner, we were talking earlier about the osteoarthritis drug. We were talking about the market for osteoarthritis, and we were talking about some of the things that you believe that your drug will be able to do once approved. One thing that stood out was you talked about the potential recreation of cartilage. Can you kind of go into that for just a second?
Well, contrary to traditional thought that once cartilage is destroyed, it does not regenerate. Our pilot studies, however, indicate that is not the case. If you eliminate the underlying cause for the disease, then we found that the cartilage oftentimes will regenerate.
Wow, that's impressive. Now, we also know that you have a number of other products that you're working on right now in addition to this particular product. Give us a feel for what's in the pipeline.
Well, we anticipate that Oasis will be our first medication product, and it will be a prescription product. We have other products in the pipeline that include a product for shingles, a product for thrombotic stroke and cord trauma. We also have in the pipeline a product for weight reduction that is not a prescription item.
Okay, let's kind of dive into that one a little bit more because it'll get to the market first. What is the name of the weight reduction product, and tell us what you expect it to do?
The weight reduction product has an acronym, FEWL, for Fast Effective Weight Loss. It is and so far, people who have used this product typically lose around a pound a day.
Okay, in losing a pound a day, obviously there's people in the room right now that could probably help use it. I know it'd be good for me to get rid of the 9 people living in my stomach right now. That'd be great. But that said, tell us how a product like that works. How do you take it? How does it work? What does it do to the body?
Well, this product relieves your craving for certain foods. Our program at Global Pharma Labs for weight loss includes instruction on dietary change, and those dietary changes are helped with our fuel product. And what it does is it relieves your craving or eliminates your craving for sugar and for carbohydrates.
Wow, that's a good start for me because probably not want to mention to you what I actually had for lunch today, so let's not go there.
That also works for diabetics real well.
How would it work for diabetics?
Well, not most, but many diabetics have an issue with weight and particularly with insulin resistance that's associated with the obesity factor. A loss of weight increases one's sensitivity to insulin and therefore improves the diabetic condition.
We had a gentleman on the show once who talked about diabetes and some of the data points associated with it. When you think about what your product potentially could do, would you introduce it also as a potential diabetic supplement?
Yes.
Okay.
And also one for individuals, particularly who have high hypertension.
At that point, would it also require labeling for that, or could you continue to market it without FDA approval, or would you just have it as a nutraceutical?
Well, once you mention a disease, it requires FDA approval.
That sounds interesting. What do you think?
So,
So now that I mentioned diabetes, does it now require FDA approval for the weight loss product that previously didn't?
well, we're not going to mention diabetes.
Okay, then. Let's just take that out of the script.
Right now, the product is a dietary supplement,
Okay.
and it can help you lose weight. Now, if diabetics lose weight, then obviously a lot of them will have that will have a positive impact on their disease.
Okay, but you're not bringing it to market saying that it also.
No,
Okay,
no,
got it.
no.
So,
We're not bringing
I
it to
know,
market for that purpose.
When you mention the disease, that's when the FDA gets that is interesting. We had a couple of minutes left here, I think, or so. Talk to us a little bit about when you think of Global Pharma, where it is, where you think it's going as a company going forward, and how do you expect to get there? Give us that in 2 minutes.
Well, our company intends to develop affordable treatments for human diseases. And it is now focused on some very common problems that affect individuals. So we anticipate, as we go forward, pushing those products out to the global population. We also have interests as we go along in not only making the products affordable, but through some of our products, such as the fuel product, in creating new wealth.
Okay. And creating new wealth. If people were interested in looking at your company and getting more information about it, and also maybe even contacting you, how would they do that?
We are on the net. Our website is globalpharmalabs.net.
Globalpharmalabs.net. It's intriguing as I think about, you got osteoarthritis. You're looking also at the possibility of a drug for weight reduction, which you say helps people with diabetes, but necessarily help them with diabetes because we don't use that word around here. Those are interesting things to keep in mind going forward. Dr. Bonner, I want to thank you for joining us today, and I appreciate the time you've given us and tell us about your product.
I thank you also.
Thank you. All right, you've been listening to Dr. Ernest Bonner, Global Pharma Labs, and Ed Baxter, Bison Creek Capital.